uzima. Tuungane sote tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
You are watching us live here at Humans TV Africa. It is Humans TV Africa. We are a registered non-government organization, a charity that does media work, especially promoting rights and, of course, information that empowers our people. My name is Kato Mukasa, and in the studio is Dennis Bongole to do the production of the show. And of course, I want to encourage you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, TikTok, and our website. The name is Humans TV Africa. We are at present having studios in Uganda, studios in Kenya, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, UK, and the US, and we're still growing as an NGO that intends to change the way things are, provide information, share knowledge, and empower each other. Today, we are again blessed to have the experts on food rights and, of course, food safety. We are going to be handling issues of food, issues of consumer rights and responsibility. And of course, in the studio, my experts from on my left-hand side is Mr. Kimera Henry. You have been watching these shows and, of course, is with us. And of course, on my left, my right is Mr. Bambari Bernard. Now, I'm going to welcome Mr. Kimera to give us his opening remark.
Thank you very much, Murongo, Paul Kato. To all of you, our viewers, wherever you are, it's always a great honor to be on TV Africa. I would say that 2024 has been a blessing year for us. And the Humanist TV has given us platforms that we go beyond the trans-borders and we enter the homes of several people or several consumers on different continents to bring about aspects to do with consumerism. Ladies and gentlemen, the month of March, we have many celebrations, and one of the celebrations that we commemorate is Consumer Rights Day on 15th March. But there's also another very key celebration we always commemorate in March, that is the International Women's Day on 8th March. Historically, in the consumer movement, the movement was kind of kicked off by the lead of housewives, women mothers, who were preparing food for their families, goods and services for their families, and started seeing unscrupulous. Then they opted to get into solidarity and start speaking out on issues that were affecting their the quality of their family's life, their own quality, their child's lives, their feeding, and so forth. So the aspects to do with the World Consumer Rights Day that was recognized and taken into being cognizant of the 8 consumer rights, and also designated in 1985 that 15th March will be recognized as the World Consumer Rights Day. But all this started some years back when the late President John F. Kennedy raised set aspects to do with consumer rights in speech way back in 1962. So this month of March has a lot to celebrate, not to celebrate consumer rights as a mere ceremony, but we will appreciate that consumer rights are human rights. And as we'll be seeing, or you'll be watching, there are 8 consumer rights and 5 consumer responsibilities. So we are here today to kickstart the 5 series that we are going to hold this year, where we will be discussing the different consumer organizations in Africa, and we will be discussing their role in socio-economic development. Then further, as I hand over back to Paul, I would like to say, as consumer organizations globally, we are confederated in an organization whose headquarters are in London, Consumers International, which has evolved since it was formed. We have just concluded a global congress, which was in Nairobi on 6th to 8th December, and we focused on building the futures for resilient consumers. So some of the aspects we are going to touch during this month, the 5 series we are going to have, we would like to champion the different consumer organizations on the continent, and we would love to have the consumers, the trust next Saturday, we will have consumers organizations from Kenya. The 3rd series will have consumer organizations from Zimbabwe, Rwanda. We expect to have consumer organizations from West Africa, Central Africa, and Northern Africa to speak out and to champion this consumer cause. So once again, I would like to, on behalf of all consumer organizations and on behalf of consumers, to thank the consumer behind Paul Kato, plus all his members in the studios in the diaspora, finding time to give the consumers a voice and give the consumer organization a voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chimera, for that very important introduction. You have set the pace for this month. This is March, and we are going to be handling consumer rights and the responsibilities. Of course, looking at the roles of consumer rights organizations. There are quite many in the world, and we shall be very honored to have them on site to talk with us, share with us, and of course, our audience is going to be very much interested to hear from them now. Going to Mr. Bernard Bambare, I'd like to hear from you what you have in store for us this month as a brief from you going forward.
All right, thank you so much, Kato, and thank you so much, Mr. Chimera, for giving us the heads up. We welcome, of course, our viewers once again to March, and of course, congratulations upon finishing the month of February and of course, starting the month of March. We're still committed to serving with you and also sharing with you information about what you're supposed to know, but also leveraging on the different topics that we want to discuss with our people. Some of these things look obvious, but many of the consumers do not even understand that they have a Consumer Rights Day. you know. And I think it's the right platform now to inform our consumers that actually we have a whole day of commemoration of the Consumer Rights Day, but also looking at the aspects surrounding the consumer. It is not enough to have the rights, but what are we supposed to do as consumers so that we benefit from the rights that we have will be our center stage this month. Trying to, alert you of what you're supposed to know as a consumer, understanding your right, but also understanding your responsibility of what you're supposed to do for us or to achieve the right that you have. It is one thing to have a right, and it is another to actually achieve and claim that right. So we really don't want to look at the rights and then we leave out what we are supposed to have to actually achieve the rights or to attain the rights that we have. So the course of this month, we shall basically be looking at what is our right, what is our responsibility, who is supposed to do what, where. When this happens to you, what are you supposed to do? So we shall check ourselves through numerous aspects when it comes to your rights, but also your responsibilities and what you're supposed to do in situations where your rights are actually not achieved. But I think as we start the show, it would be very important for us to look at who is a consumer. There's a risk that we may keep thinking that each one of us understands where consumer is. And then we keep thinking, all of us are consumers. Yes, but who are you? Who is a consumer in this perspective? I think it would be very good for us to think about it. The reason I want to really define a consumer is that there's a time, in Uganda we use bikes, borders, as one of the means of transport. So every time I jump on a bike, I am a consumer of the service of a bike. So I keep telling the guy riding me, please take me at minimal speed because I still have a future. And every time the border guy is not having lights, or maybe they don't have a side mirror on whatever, I don't jump on that motorcycle because as a consumer, I'll be compromising my right. So meaning that I'm doing my responsibility, but who is this consumer? Who am I as a consumer? So from the dictionary definition, we would see that a consumer is a person who actually buys goods or services for their own use. So you're buying a service or a good for your own use. Now that is one definition of a consumer from the dictionary version. But also Cambridge comes up with another explicit kind of definition, looking at it at an extensive level, looking at a consumer as an individual or a group of people, so the three of us can actually be consumers. So we have a consumer organization. So you can just imagine that, not looking at it at your individual level, but looking at it at a group level. So they give us another definition, looking at a person or a group whose intention is to order. So you might be ordering, or you are using purchased goods or services or products, primarily for personal purchase, rather for personal or social, family or household. They give all those different perspectives. So they are looking at it at a broader perspective, looking at me, the individual, or a group of individuals that are actually intending to purchase goods or services or products, primarily for personal, social, family, or household needs. So you want to meet a particular need, either a societal need or a personal need or a household need or a family need, but you're purchasing something to meet that need. So they also look at you as a consumer. Now, this could be either directly or indirectly, but as long as it is meeting a particular need of a family, a household, or a group of people, or a set of, a set of individuals, we still look at them as consumers. So I think we need to start there.
I'll ask you a question.
So,
I'll ask you a quick question. Maybe one or two.
Yes.
Because we talked about intention, not directly, but this is what I take very quickly. Now, assuming that I have my money and I want to bank it in Bank X in Uganda,
yes,
and I haven't yet banked it with this bank, am I a consumer of this bank? I haven't yet banked my money.
Yes.
I have this intention. Am I a consumer of this bank? And which rights do I have?
Now, first of all, you're already a consumer who is now looking at the intention of why you should bank the money where. So a consumer starts now reasoning. Now that's where when we go to the rights, now you will see where you belong. For example, you have your 500 million US dollars. You are now thinking about banking it. Now, by the mere fact that you're banking it, you first need the right to know which bank is appropriate for you to bank it. So you're already a consumer in the background, planning, you have an intention to use a particular service, and now you have a right to first know about that service. So you become an automatic consumer as long as you want to utilize a service or a good somewhere. So you're already a consumer somewhere, but now who is now looking at, okay, where do I put it? So you need the information. And now we start talking about a right to information. You need to know which bank is better for me and which. So you're looking for information to meet the right of you, the consumer.
So what I'm thinking from there is that a consumer
Yes.
can even be an intentional consumer, not actually a direct consumer,
Exactly.
but intentional, having that kind of thought process that maybe one day and be part of this kind of group is already a consumer in a way. Now, the other thing I wanted to clarify is, I'm a parent. In fact, my children are in how many schools? My children are in 4 schools. So I'm a parent to 4 schools where my children go.
Yes.
Now, my children are in these schools. Now, between me and my children, who are the consumers for this product called education?
Now, all of you are consumers. Remember, I talked about a family, societal, or whatever intention. Now, you're a service pro. You're a consumer because you're paying this school. So the services that are offered to that school make you take your children there. Now, your children are actually direct beneficiaries of the services of the school. So ideally, the parent and the children are all consumers at different levels. The fact that you, the parent, you are using the services of that school to educate your children and you are paying them money, you are actually a consumer there. You are consuming those services, though indirectly. Now, your children are consumers because they are actually directly receiving the service from the school. And the school is actually also a consumer of your money, on the other hand, because they are also actually utilizing your resources and actually they are depending on your children. If your children are not in that school, they are actually also losing. So everyone becomes a consumer at that angle.
Thank you very much. Because I asked those questions because I want our viewers to understand these things clearly. That I may be a direct consumer and I may be an indirect consumer. I may consume by osmosis.
Or by diffusion.
I may consume by osmosis. I'm also consumed directly because someone may say, but you are not students here. Why are you bothering us? Maybe I'm intending to take my child there, not yet there, but somehow I'm a consumer in the whole thing, planning to be part of the game. Now, Mr. Kimera, having had all this, let us hear from you what you prepared for us for this introductory show.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And Bernard, that was a good curtain riser. And Paul, like you asked those questions, you are a potential consumer. And once you get this information, you get to know your rights and responsibility, then you make an informed decision. And when you said, I would like to go to a particular, when you asked about financial services, in a country like Uganda and in many other countries, we have got what we call the financial consumer protection guidelines that have been enforced. They are mandatory. And when the national payments that are there to protect the consumer, so you are taking us in aspects of the financial services. Now they are bringing in the digital financing. So new regulations are coming in, and these regulations and laws are challenging even some of the players. The digital finance is a big issue that we'll be tackling this month as we discuss different aspects. What I would like to kickstart with, the theme for this year is all about fair and responsible AI for consumer. AI is artificial intelligence. And you'll find that, Paul, you are in the developed world, and a lot of AI is being applied there, but also AI is also being applied in developing world, in that anybody holding a gadget, whether it's a mobile phone, a tablet, the smart TVs, all those are collecting data, which data can be used, but they have got an element of technology. And we appreciate technology is the fastest growing sector. And one of the components of technology is artificial intelligence. The times when we used to hear that we started discussing artificial intelligence, but even when the robots were introduced in manufacturing or in the service sector, it is all artificial intelligence. And it has been going on graduating, and most of the people will appreciate the fourth industrialization and maybe the fifth and so on is all going to be technology related, and mainly it will be digital. But this year or this month, as Consumers International, members are requested that through our deliberations of this month, we look at responsible, fair and responsible artificial intelligence for consumers. Consumers, whether you're knowledgeable or not, we are all potential victims. Like you'll find the Bitcoin, people going in for different kind of digital services have ended up either being victims, people ordering stuff online, and they end up not getting the correct products. So aspects to do with e-commerce, digitalization, and now AI, we need to come up with global arrangement where consumers are not victimized and they can get redress when they are affected. So having said that, like I always say, I said in the previous engagements, that consumers, we are the biggest money, we are not getting our money worth, where our rights are abused. So during this month, ladies and gentlemen, we need to make sure that the message of consumer protection as a fundamental principle to bring about resiliency and sustainable development is top of the agenda in every aspect of governance, aspects to do with management of society, aspects to do with service provision, aspects to do with provision of goods, to have safe products. You'll find that all our income as consumers, we spend it on goods and services. And this is where we need those goods to be of good quality. So that's why the different consumer organizations on the continent participate in different arrangements to take the consumer voices, to scale up the consumer voices in aspects to do with goods, with food and agriculture, to do with goods and services, to do with utilities, to talk about the environment. So this is something very key during this month, that consumers, whether you're knowledgeable and you all get to know today, and you're unknowledgeable, you educate others so that the aspects of consumer protection are top of the agenda. It is always appreciated that a country that has not got strong principles and not holding consumer protection as a fundamental right, that country doesn't recognize its citizens. The welfare of the consumers is the welfare of a sustainable country. When consumers are not productive, when consumers are abused, the economy is also abused, because it's the consumers who drive business. What the economists call the market. The market is formed by us, the consumers. We determine and we disdetermine. In the developed world, most of the markets are demand driven, where the market or the businesses listen to the consumers. In the developing world, where most of the consumer organizations will be speaking on this platform, we are supplier driven. The issues that we are given are thought for. We have it's different parties that think for us, and they shove them down our throats, and then we pay for them. So during this month, we would wish to inform the different players that consumers can make better businesses, consumers uphold the market, and then those duty bearers should make sure consumer protection becomes a pillar in policy making. It becomes a pillar in service delivery, quality of goods offered, and the return on the development of the nation. Sick consumers indicate a sick economy, because they will spend most of their resources on buying medicines rather than putting it to something productive, doing savings, and improving their livelihoods to be more productive. So this is very key. And most of these are shrined in the consumer rights. Like the consumer right number 1 is all about basic needs. The basic needs, one of the aspects or the aspects that are in there is access to food that is nutritious, that is safe. Aspects to do with health care. And like we have been saying, the best health care a consumer can have should be food-based. Looking at housing, like you are raising an issue that imagine being a potential consumer, health-wise, we have the campaigns have been on. Many consumers die because they are second-hand smokers. If they are in community and somebody is smoking and you inhale, it can trigger many other diseases. So the right to basic needs, our consumer, number 1. The other right, as we have consumers, is the right to safety. Safety by the provision of quality goods and services. Consuming safe products is something very key. The other right we have as consumers is the right to choose. So consumers, we have the right to choose products that are safe, that are not hazardous to our health and life. So information is our other consumer right. As the consumer, to make an informed choice, you need information. Like Paul, you were saying, you are a potential customer of the bank, you are a potential client of the school. You need that information to be right, not to be misinforming and misleading you. So we get all these sorts of information in adverts, we get it on labeling, and these are done most of the times through standards. We have got falsehood information, but we need to have correct, honest, and non-misleading information. The other right, number 5, which I would raise, is about being represented. I finished the choice. Being represented as consumers is something very key. And this is what consumer organizations in EREVA in Africa, they do represent consumers. And this leads us to the other right of the right to redress. As consumers, once you have got the basic right, let's say you get a home or you get food and it is not safe, and you got it through wrong information, your representatives can go and represent you to get redress. And redress is our right number 6, that in case I buy a product or a service and it is wrong, not of good quality, you need to go back, complain to business, complain to the regulatory authorities, the duty bearers, that you didn't get your money value and you need redress. So this leads us to another right, the right of education. Consumers to make informed choices, consumers to be in a position to live a healthy life. We need consumer education. And this is what we are going to do in the 5 series we are going to have in the month of March. Consumer education is very key to enable consumers make informed, skillful, and decision-making while they are accessing goods and services. So this leads us to the last consumer right, the right to a healthy environment. So as consumers, we have a right to a healthy environment, but we also have a responsibility to keep this environment healthy. And we will find that the environment, like we have been discussing in the food safety series, the environment touches many aspects. The one on earth, if we go to the Sustainable Development Goals, life over land, life underwater, life in the air. So this is the environment we look at. We must look at our environment, where we live, the air we breathe, the land, the soils, the waters, the trees, the vegetation. So all these form up our healthy environment. But you'll find with the unplanned urbanization, with the constant traffic jams, with unplanned cutting down of forests, the healthy environment for consumers isn't guaranteed. So at this point, Paul, I would like to put a stop and ask Bernard to come in and lead us through the responsibilities, and in case he needs to do a rejoinder, he can bring it in so that we share the platform and we sensitize the consumers. But I can take on in if you have any question, Paul, before you go to.
Thank you very much. No, it's just like an observation, say a comment. Now, in basic economics, we say, you said that in Europe or in developed countries, the demand dictates the market. Yeah. If I got it right. But again, you said that in our countries, by the way, I don't like the idea of calling us third world countries. That business of
That's why I say in our countries.
Yes, you did say it. You did say it. I'm just saying it as a person who went to school for economics, because I realized that you are actually abusing us. You are belittling our countries in their funny jargons. Now, we are all countries. Others are much more better in terms of GDP, GNI, others are less fortunate, but we are all countries. Now, when you look at our countries, you said they are supply driven, which is actually a fact. Now, in economics, when you have that graph, the demand curve meets the supply curve and then determines the price. That is basic economics. Demand meets supply and then the price is determined. Now, when you look at consumer rights now, because when demand meets supply, you are going to determine the price, and who pays the price? The consumer. The question I've been having about us, especially in Africa, we keep on hearing capitalism talks about consumer is the king. Consumer is the king. Because without you, you don't exist. You are the king. In Europe, they tried, because honestly, business will close once consumers are annoyed. Because right now, they are ordering everything on the phone. Now, if you make a mistake and send a bad product, they are going to sue you and you are going to close. Or they are going to give you bad publicity, and definitely government is going to cramp down on you and they will close because the authorities work and consumers are knowledgeable. Therefore, if someone says consumer is the king, I agree. That even me, when I go to hospital right here, the way people respect you in the hospitals here, it's like you're going to report them tomorrow. Even the way a man who drives the bus respects you, even the way a policeman respects you. Why? The system works. If I report you, you may lose your job. So people are careful the way they handle you. When you ask them, they are humble, they want to give you information. Honestly, you feel that the consumer is the king. You are even poorer than them. But you go to a bank, everyone is going to be attentive. Among the bank tellers, everyone is asking you, sir, how do you help? I mean, they are taking care of you. You go to a policeman, they are very humble. They will call you, sir, they call you. I mean, they want to serve you. Wherever you go, the system is working. You're in hospital, the system is working. You see the idea of the consumer is the king. Come to Uganda, and a bit of Africa I've gone to. Go to Kenya. I've gone to Kenya, I've been to Uganda. I ask myself, honestly, in our countries that are supply driven, is the consumer the king? Is the consumer the king? If I go to buy food and you give me food on a plate full of water, not even dried, and I'm eating in an environment where even flies are jumping around, you cannot even spray. I'm asking myself, am I really king in this market? Am I even respected by the guy I'm giving my money? You go to the bank, they make you lie for 1 hour or two. They have no courtesy of even giving you a chair to sit in. Until recently, there were no chairs. Now, when I went to my bank in Centenary, I discovered, I found about a year ago, they had introduced chairs where now people can sit. But we used to go to Centenary and you line for 2 hours, especially during time of school fees. You line, you are all people, tired, sick, they are all in the line for 1 hour, 2 hours. And someone tells me, this bank respects me. Standard Bank was doing the same. But about 1 year and a half ago, they introduced the chairs. Central also introduced the chairs. But when you go to Equity, no chairs, to the best of my knowledge. A line is outside the bank. It is snaking outside the bank. Now, I'm wondering, I'm asking all of you to think about it. In Africa, in Uganda, are we really kings as consumers? You go to a bus restaurant. I normally use buses when I'm going home. They are cheaper. I want to save money. I use Global Bus much of the time. It is stable on the road and also cheaper. Now, in Global Bus, the moment you sit down like this, there is a person or two. They call themselves preachers. I don't like preachers that much. A man comes and sits in a bus, begins shouting, Jesus, Jesus, forcefully shouting and actually insulting people that we are sinners, we are whatever. And the bus conductor, the bus driver allows this man to pollute our environment for like 30 minutes. They in fact go with you if I've ever gone with Global. They even go with you in that bus until they reach like Chengera or somewhere, then they board off. But this man has been making noise for 30 minutes, whether I'm having a headache, whether my migraine is bad, doesn't respect you. Even when you say, please speak slowly, you are certain. You are an agent of the devil. You don't want the word of God. Now, am I a king when I've paid my money in global bus going to my destination? In brief, I'm always looking for ways to find out whether I'm a king or not. I don't see them. You guys do see that we are kings in our countries as consumers. I don't know.
So Bernard is going to bring out some very key aspects. He also shared with in the past 2 to 3 days, we have spoken to more than 200 consumers and farmers. And Bernard brought in that analogy that you call us kings, but when you're giving us unsafe food. But in all that, I've already said that COVID did us some good and also did us some bad. COVID helped to introduce seats in the back where people would be separated and so forth. But also gradually speaking out by different consumer organizations is helping to change the status quo. So when the different consumer organizations speak out, petition, they make businesses better. And that's why we continuously say consumer advocacy and protection should be increased to make business better. And because once the consumers speak out, they give free advice, which they have paid for by buying a good or service to make that business better. So consumers speaking out do make businesses better, get return on their monies. And even this is where we always like to champion the standard on customer satisfaction in regards to quality management. So this helps businesses to get to know where their customers, how they look at them. And once you do this, you gain trust and confidence in your services. But I would love to leave that to Bernard to add more, and also he can share something with regards to consumer responsibilities. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you so much. Very interesting discussions here. You know, when we talk about demand and supply, it doesn't apply, I think, in most of the African countries. And I have seen that when you go to a restaurant, for example, you want to eat beans, and then you ask the waitress, do you have beans? You know, the person tells you, no, we don't have beans, we only have meat. Then the consumer just says, okay, just give me what is there. You see, so it's not the demand actually that is making the restaurant prepare that kind of food, but it's just what is available is what you guys eat. So when you go to, rather the supply, yeah, what is available is what you really want to go with. So there's a lot that consumers really don't seem to understand. And now when it comes to the business, my customer is my boss. You know, you've had such kind of.
Yeah, the customer is the king. Customer is the king. He's the boss. And at the end of the day, we are not.
Yeah, I mean, so the other time I was asking the business entities, why would you kill your boss? Because every time you give me food that is contaminated, or you know it has been some bit of poisons, and you give it to me, it basically means that I cease to be your boss. So you're killing your boss who will give you the money tomorrow. So the aspect of the consumers knowing what they're supposed to have is very critical. Now, Henry has talked about the different rights, and then I need to quickly give you some bit of responsibilities for us, the consumers. The consumers have a responsibility of critical awareness. Whereas you have a right to information and you have a right to education, but then you have to be critical to know what exactly is it that I'm supposed to do. And that's why we search for information, we search for knowledge. Now, what is worrying is that we have tried to advocate that every person that is giving us food or products, they try as much as possible to label them, because that is the standard we have at the time. Unfortunately, our consumers do not want to read what has been written on the packaging materials. For example, I have already given this kind of example. You find that a consumer probably they don't eat or drink milk. You know, someone doesn't eat eggs. They don't consume eggs. When they consume them, they have some bit of reactions here and there. But then someone has, you know, prepared biscuits and they have written on them that please, these biscuits have milk and they have eggs. A consumer goes ahead to buy them and eats them. Now the business person has already indicated that these biscuits have milk and have eggs. Whereas the consumer has the right to information, that right has been, rather the person has provided the information, but is there critical awareness? Are you interested in knowing what is in that product? Many people go and buy beer and they just drink. Someone has written there an expiry date. And they're telling you that the product expired 4 or 5 months ago. It's already indicated, but the consumer just continues to take. So when they have challenges of that circumstance, they cannot go to redress because the manufacturer had indicated the expiry. So the question is, are our consumers even aware that they're supposed to read the labels? So it is one thing to have a right to information, the right to education, but also it's your responsibility, number one, to critically be aware of what you're actually buying. So be more alert. Question everything. Is this product safe? When is the expiry date? When was it made? Where was it made? You know, those kind of details are very important for our consumers. As part of my responsibility as a consumer, I must be aware of who is taking me where and what kind of product I'm going to buy. Many times we buy products. For example, we buy phones. And inside the phone, the packaging material, they have put a whole manual, a script to take us through what that phone is going to operate, how it is supposed to be operated, how we are going to charge it and all this. So that consumers take it for granted that there's like a paper inside. No, its role is actually to create critical awareness to us, the consumers. So it's my responsibility to make sure that the right to information is actually ticked. So I think this is where we go wrong when we go to our consumer responsibility. So it's important that everybody really takes charge of reading the materials and understanding what is there. We have another responsibility on action. When I buy a product and this product is not meeting the standard, what do I do as a consumer? You see, you have a right to redress, but you cannot redress when you're silent. So whenever you get a product and that product is contaminated or expired, you need to talk to the person who is selling it to you. You swing into action that the product is not really good. This product is expired or something of the sort. You must swing into action. It's our responsibility to be alert and to assert ourselves and to act accordingly. If a product, you really see a product and the product is really not, is expired or it is rotten or whatever, it has a particular default, why would you take it home and then you keep quiet until it takes away your family? It is our responsibility to act. The moment the product is not safe for you, act immediately. Either act by reporting or by seeking redress or by maybe returning the product to the person who's giving it to you. So we have to act very fast to make sure that what we are taking in is actually meeting the standard, and it's therefore our responsibility. It is not the manufacturer's responsibility. It is actually ours to act. Now, sometimes people give us wrong products and we just keep quiet. We just keep saying, I bought it, but you know, these things, this is Uganda. No. You have to act swiftly towards achieving the better deal when it comes to the product or good that you're actually buying. You know, the banks and the telecom companies have actually earned a lot of money from us unknowingly. Imagine we don't know what determines the amount of data you use on your phone per second. We do not know how that is determined. But you keep loading data. Yeah, you keep loading data and in seconds it has gone away. And no one is complaining to the telecom company that actually this is it. Actually, if you looked at Twitter and there is this gentleman in Uganda, I don't know that it's called Gashumba or somebody. The DSTV, he has been loading DSTV for the last 28 years. I think 38 years, he says so in his tweet. And then he was complaining to one of the television stations I think it was DSTV. He loaded money and they did not give him his subscription, and yet there was a program he wanted to watch. So he immediately called that toll-free line for the TV. Unfortunately, he didn't receive, feedback until he put it on his Twitter. Then another TV in Kenya, the same branch but in Kenya, responded swiftly. But then they said, unfortunately, we cannot support you because you're in Uganda. And it took more than 24 hours. No one was getting back to him. So when they got to him, it was after, I think, the Kenyan team had, said, guys, please support this and the other. That is showing that he was really responsible and he was showing action. And he has actually decided not to use that same channel again because he's not getting his service. So in terms of action, we need to do our best. If, for example, someone is carrying you on a motorbike and is over speeding, it is your right because you are giving him money. So you have to swiftly move in and say, man, please move slowly. I'm not rushing anywhere. Take me slowly. This is my money. But how many of the consumers take action when things are wrong? They only take action when an accident is happening in the next few minutes, which is a very wrong thing. So it's very important that whereas we have our rights, we have responsibilities as consumers to undertake. The other is about social concern. Social concern is about, are we even concerned about what is happening around us? That responsibility to be aware of the impact of what may happen to us. Look at when people are contaminating, people are driving wrong cars, people are, putting up factories in the settlement areas where people are living. But the entire community is quiet because, the entire place is contaminated and no one is complaining about it. We need to take social responsibility. How is this affecting our social being in our community? Look at the place where there are factories or industry or whatever. There are a lot of mining happening. And the community is not worried or even not bothered about what pollution they are having around their community. Even when you have a right to, information, education, and all this, but are you concerned about that social concern of the environment where you're living? Are we looking at people who are disadvantaged in our communities, that whereas people have vehicles? Let us maybe look at this in this example. We are all users or we are consumers of the roads. And the roads are having potholes and no one is complaining about them. And when they're not complaining about them, a person drives a car and it has rained and splashes water on everybody who is using the road. We are not really taking in the social concern of the people around us. How is this affecting our people? How is this, if I do a factory here, how is it affecting the people or the community around us? So all these are things that we need to take into perspective as responsibilities for our own as consumers. We have another responsibility to do with environmental awareness. Do we even know the environment we are living in? Do we even bother about where food is being sold? For example, you go to a market and the market, it's having a lot of garbage, it has a lot of waste, and we are not bothered to know the environmental awareness. Where are we? How safe is the environment that the food is being sold? How safe is the place where the bank is being placed? How safe is the market? How do I place this market here? All these are problems that come because the consumers are not responsible. Every time they are doing something, we need to think about the environmental awareness of the consumer. And as consumers, don't buy food in the wrong place. If you realize there is waste or there is, garbage chips there, don't continue to buy. That is now your responsibility. Even when you have a responsibility to basic needs like food, why must you go and buy food in an environmentally unfriendly place? So this is your responsibility to know that, okay, where do I buy the food? It is my basic need. I need the food, but where do I buy it? What should the environment look like? And lastly, we have a responsibility of solidarity, that us, the consumers, must have solidarity, that when we refuse a particular product, we are indeed refusing it. The challenge we have is that now we want to refuse a product and you are alone refusing it. Now the rest of the members are continually taking it in. So are we able to come together, fight together for our rights and rights of consumers? Are we able to come as a team and say, guys, look here, we want motorcycles and you must have an element. You must have, riding gear. You must have this. Do we have that solidarity that we can come together, complain together, fight together and have this thing? That's why they say that when people come together, many things happen. When people join efforts, many things change. The question is, are our consumers knowing this responsibility of coming together for the common good of all of them? So I think it's our responsibility. Yes. So I think we need to do that and then we push forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bernard, give us your parting shot, because I'm going to make a remark, but of course it will be as I conclude. Give us your parting shot on this one for today.
I think that all of us have a responsibility to do our very best to ensure that we become responsible consumers, but also I call upon the different consumer organizations, the governments, and everybody really to make sure our consumers understand their rights, but also understand their responsibilities, so that they are fairly surviving and we are together moving forward, whether it is the bank, with transport, whatever, food industry, all these other sectors we have. Let us create awareness to our consumers on rights and their responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you. As we go to Mr. Kimera, this was my observation as Bernard was speaking. How many of us in our villages go to buy bread and read the expiry date and don't buy it? In our villages, by the way, do I even talk about villages? In Kampala,
even in our town.
Yes, in Kampala City. How many of us go to the shop and say, give me bread, and you first read the expiry date? Even us, people with degrees, useless degrees, how many of us go and read the expiry date of a donut if it's there in the first place?
I last rejected sorry for the 1 second. I just rejected beer. When I rejected beer because it had expired, the guy asked me, "You mean beer expires?" When I read it, it had expiry date 3 months ago, and it was in the bar.
Yes, some of us, for example, go to the clinic, our village clinics, our slum clinics, because I've been a part of the slums for so long, slums of Kampala, and say, "Nurse, I have a headache. Can you get me tablets?" How many of us dare to find out if this clinic actually has a license, if it's not expired, if this nurse is actually qualified to treat me, and if the team from which this medicine is being got is actually not expired? Because we don't do this. Honestly, we don't do this. Because we think, I'll be like a wiseacre, I'll be like an inconvenience, you know? I mean, I feel like as if I'm so educated, as if I'm better than them. Somehow we are bullied into submission. I should tell you, even me, I keep quiet and say, okay. But honestly, when that is the right thing to do. Lastly, look what a situation I've been seeing in slums of Kampala for years. I've been there. When bread is expired, like for 4 days, 3 days, they put it on smaller vans or wheelbarrows, and they go on vending it. If it was 2,000, it is 1,000. And I should tell you, people line up to go and buy it, knowing it is expired, but they want it. Nothing is put on the garbage. Those are the dilemmas, Mr. Kimera. As we wind up, the road to teach ourselves out of this ignorance, I think, is a big thing. That even us, the so-called educated, are still victims. So back to you, Mr. Kimera, as we wind up, your parting shot.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you very much, Bernard. You've given a very good curtain riser to start our 5 series. This has been rich, and some of the aspects, Paul, you're raising, these are the roles of the consumer organizations: to conduct awareness, to speak out and do consumer advocacy. The last aspect you have just raised, I'll give you the news clip. It happened in Uganda, and one journalist came in to ask me what could be the consequences. And it was a feature story, New Vision, sometime last year. So what you're raising are living and their realities. But like I always say, most of the times what really pushes us back. We reached a time when all the goods and services were supplied by government. And in that time, nobody would question government. I don't know if you saw foods and beverages in Uganda. It was a parastatal. And it was supplying everything everywhere. The history I know about it, until its last days, you would get only quality products. And at times, a government agency that I recall, I know, Paul, you must have seen Sound Solo.
Yeah.
That radio.
Yeah.
It was one that was imported by still a government agency. So, culturally, we were used to getting services from government institutions, but they were for people. Now, today, you challenge the service you get from. And then with liberalization, that's when we say we liberalized ourselves naked without safety nets. Consumer protection would be a safety net in liberalization. Because if you kill your market, the consumers, you get it sick, then that private sector will die away. But having said all that, as we part and we prepare for next week, it is very key not to leave anyone behind. We need to scale up consumer awareness to have better economies. We need to scale up advocacy with regards to governance of humanity, investments in humanity, enshrining consumer protection in every facet of governance, service delivery, product safety, and in every process, health, food, production, environment, we need to have an element of consumer protection, social protection. Economists, and you, Paul, you said you are in a class of economics. They say most of the times that those of you who try to make things simple for the consumers, these are economic goods. They are not giveaway or something like that. Because welfare is a type of economy. So it is very key that we are having this series to help drive our economies, have better business, and have resilient private sector by the private sector listening into the consumers who give them money. So I would like to end with that, and I will be rallying my colleagues that next week we have got our colleagues from Kenya. Then the other week we could have colleagues from Rwanda and Zimbabwe and other West and Northern African countries. By the time we wind up March, we would like to have impacted and contributed to consumer welfare and also improving the economy of Africa. Most of the things that we import deprive us some of the development. But if the consumers can demand, let's say, to eat indigenous food that are nutritious and healthy, the private sector will be processing quality indigenous foods rather than imported foods. Thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you next Saturday with other consumer organizations. Thank you, Humanist TV Africa, for the gesture.
Thank you so much,
all
Mr.
my
Kimera.
colleagues, Paul and Bernard. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera, for having us. For the time you have given us. Thank you so much, Mr. Bernard, for the time you have given us. Of course, it has been a very, very powerful show. Remember, this is part one of a series which is going to be titled Consumer Rights and Responsibilities, and of course, roles of NGOs, organizations that actually work toward these rights. We shall be having different stakeholders coming from different countries to feature on this very show next Saturday and more. Stay tuned, and of course, keep on watching and following us, and of course, take the information to people that actually need it more. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.